Yeah, I'll react to that, sure. Will Greece and Turkey go to war? Thank you, Wildman. Okay, this isn't antiquity. This is
disputes.
Yeah, they have some island disputes in the Aegean, right? But other than that, I do not know anything else. So let's learn. Original link, top description, Discord below that. Would love to have you. Let's go.
It's a conflict that has plagued the region for generations, rooted in territorial disputes, historic rivalries, access to resources, and a whole lot more. Time and time again, Turkey and Greece have failed to find solutions to their many disagreements, and on more than one occasion have come close to the brink of war, with Turkey going as far as to threaten Athens with missile strikes in recent months. Despite both nations being members of NATO,
I was just gonna ask. Well, he's going to say it, but let me just ask instead. Anyways. What are the rules if two NATO countries get in an armed conflict, however big? Like, are they both kicked out? Are they suspended until suspended from NATO stuff until a ceasefire? Or?
Armed confrontation seems increasingly as a likely scenario. And today, we're going to dive into the cause of this tension and examine the possibility of it erupting into Europe's next war.
Yeah, long history.
The first issue dividing the two nations is a shared history of tension and war going back hundreds of years. Greece was occupied by the Ottoman Empire in the 15th century and was kept under their rule for more than 400 years. Finally,
so did it go right from Byzantine to Ottoman? Like,
in the early 1800s, Greece rose up in a nationwide revolution which later became known as the Greek War of Independence. 150,000 people lost their lives in the bloody revolt, but Greece emerged victorious and succeeded in regaining its sovereignty. The next century saw several more skirmishes and wars fought between the two, such as the Greco-Turkish War of 1897, the Balkan Wars, World War I, and the Greco-Turkish War of 1919 to 1922. Long story short, each of these wars resulted in one nation taking or losing a little bit of territory, usually claimed by either side to be rightfully theirs. During this time, the Ottoman Empire initiated the systematic killing of Christian Ottoman Greeks, killing at least 300,000 and causing many more to flee the nation. The Greek genocide has struggled to gain recognition to this day and is denied by many in modern Turkey, further exacerbating the subject. But then came the Cold War, when, despite the intense animosity between the two, Greece and Turkey were supposed to be allies. Greece was a founding member of NATO, with Turkey joining in 1952, and so, despite their differences, they were expected to unite against the common threat of communism and the Soviet Union. But this didn't exactly work out like everyone hoped it would, largely thanks to a little bit of a disagreement about Cyprus. Cyprus is an island located in the eastern Mediterranean, right underneath Turkey.
The UK sort of involved in this
about Cyprus. Cyprus is an island located in the eastern Mediterranean, right underneath Turkey. The former British colony, it gained independence in 1960 and set up its own government. But because 77% of its population was Greek and the remainder almost all Turk, trouble was right around the corner as each side vied for political control of the strategically located island. In 1964, Turkey threatened Cyprus with an invasion, only called off when the United States threatened repercussions. Greece continued to wish for Cyprus to be reunited with the motherland and attempted to force this with a coup d'etat in 1974, in which Greek Cypriots took control of the government with the help of the Greek dictator. Turkey responded by invading the northern half of the island, and by the time everything cooled down, Turkey had occupied a significant portion of northern Cyprus. Since then, the island has been roughly split into. The southern end is still the Republic of Cyprus, the original nation, and even a member of the European Union. Separated from the south by a UN buffer zone, the northern portion is known as the Turkish Republic of Northern Cyprus, a country recognized by only Turkey. The situation has remained frozen ever since, and the Cyprus issues continue to divide Greece and Turkey and drive tension and disagreement. However, Cyprus is far from the only island causing conflict in the 21st century. It would be a bit of an understatement to say that the Aegean Sea is full of Greek islands. Greece has more than 200 islands in the area, but Greek ownership of some is disputed by Turkey. One example of this are the islands of Imia, or Kardak as they're known in Turkish. These are uninhabited, but their location is so close to the Turkish mainland that this makes Ankara nervous. They are one of several islets that, despite being claimed entirely by Greece, are regarded as grey zones by Turkey. And this only scratches the surface of the issue. Aside from some islands being outright claimed by Turkey, there is also the issue of Greece's territorial waters and exclusive economic zones. According to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, each nation currently has the right to extend their territorial waters 12 nautical miles from their coastline. Specified in this agreement are the waters of an archipelago, in which it is stated that nations have the right to extend such territorial waters from their outermost islands. It's important to note here that Turkey is not signature to this agreement and therefore isn't technically bound by its laws, but Greece argues that they should follow them regardless, as is customary. Currently, Greece claims 6 nautical miles off of each island and asserts its right to one day extend this to the allowed 12.
Guys, the territorial waters with archipelagos really starts confusing me because when you have islands that are kind of far off, I don't know the distances exactly, but are there parts in this where it is not Greek? It's only Greek up to like a few miles out of each island? Or is it the outermost islands are where the boundary is and all of the water within is Greek water territory? So like, is this Greek water?
It's important to note here that Turkey is not signature to this agreement and therefore isn't technically bound by its laws, but Greece argues that they should follow them regardless, as is customary. Currently, Greece claims 6 nautical miles off of each island and asserts its right to one day extend this to the allowed 12. The likely reason they've yet to do this is because Turkey has stated that if Greece accepts the 12 nautical mile limit, they will resort to military action. Turkey also resents the use of islands as an extension of territorial waters and would prefer it if Greece's 6 nautical miles only extended from the mainland. Now, looking at this from a neutral perspective, Greece believes that they have the right to much of the Aegean Sea because they control most of the islands within it and believe that Turkey wants to unfairly take half of this. Granting Turkey half of the Aegean would also isolate many Greek islands in foreign waters, leaving them sitting ducks if Turkey ever feels like taking them. On the Turkish side, they view it as unfair that Greece's territorial waters are allowed to extend so far. Now, this is a fairly big issue for Turkey because Greece has many islands that are located very close to the Turkish coast, severely limiting Turkey's space in the sea. This is especially frustrating when many of the islands are uninhabited. The issue of territorial waters has only grown more intense as juicy reserves of resources like natural gas and oil have been discovered under the seabed. In 2019, Turkey made a surprise deal with Libya, splitting up much of the Aegean for their own exclusive economic zones, hoping to cash in on all of the oil drilling potential. The boundaries drawn up in the deal not only ignored many of Greece's smaller islets, but also huge islands like Crete, and was therefore condemned by the international community. In response, Greece went ahead and signed a maritime deal with Italy and another one with Egypt, which was referred to by the Turkish President Erdogan as useless. Later in 2019, Erdogan was photographed next to a map of Turkey showing half of the Aegean Sea as Turkish waters with the big title, Turkey's Blue Homeland. And, well, tensions have only risen since then.
I mean, this is a tough question for people who I'm sure who are a lot more knowledgeable than I am. But I see both of their points. And if I were either Turkey or Greece in this scenario, I think I would want the same thing that either of them wants. And so, yeah, the fact that there's I don't see either of their claims as, I think the claim of wanting, I'll take that back actually. I think Turkey's claim of wanting to split the Aegean like down the middle, and that's even though there are a lot, so you're going to have a lot of Greek islands inside of Turkish waters. That doesn't really make sense. But at the same time, if I was Turkey, I would be pretty defensive about all those Greek islands right off my coast. Yeah, I don't know.
So, the most concerning part of the conflict between Turkey and Greece isn't the dispute over water or uninhabited islands. Rather, it's about the dangerous games that are being played by each side, which have led to the deaths of many pilots. Turkey refuses to acknowledge much of Greece's airspace, similar to the way they reject Greek claims to their territorial waters, and they regularly violate this airspace with fighter jet flyovers. Normally, these violations are performed by Turkish F-16s and F-4s, which are routinely intercepted by Greek F-16s or Mirage 2000s. This type of interception happens all the time around the world. I mean, look no further than Russian aircraft trying their luck near Alaska. But the Aegean air disputes are unique because the two sides actively engage in dogfights with each other. Obviously, because they aren't at war, they don't actually shoot at each other, but they do pull off dangerous maneuvers to scare the enemy pilot and will even do so at dangerously low altitudes. In 1992, a Greek fighter was dogfighting two Turkish fighters and ended up crashing into the Aegean, killing the pilot. In 1995, two different Turkish fighters crashed into the sea, resulting in the deaths of one of the pilots. Just a year later, after a long dogfight between four fighter jets, one of the Greek jets reportedly downed its Turkish opponents with an air-to-air missile which killed the pilot but allowed the co-pilot to eject. This has never been confirmed, but it's pretty clear that Greece's claim of mechanical failure isn't enough to explain the situation. Later in 2006, the dueling jets crashed directly into each other. Turkey also regularly sends fighters to harass helicopters or jets carrying Greek government personnel and have done their best to intimidate the Prime Minister on several occasions. This is especially scary because a single tragic mistake in one of these situations could quickly escalate into war if an important figure were to be harmed or even possibly killed. The flyovers originally stuck to the so-called grey zones, but over the years they become bolder and bolder in their trips. The 2010s were the first time they flew over the island of Rhodes, and in 2020 they even flew over the Greek mainland for the first time, sparking outrage.
Whoa.
So looking at all of this, it might seem like war is ready to break out at any moment, and on a few occasions it almost has. Military build-ups have had the world holding their breath several times in the last few decades. In 1996, Greeks...
I really want to know what the NATO precaution is, if they have one at all, of inter-NATO country wars.
Special forces landed on the world holding their breath several times in the last few decades. In 1996, Greek special forces landed on the Emir Islets, which, if you remember, was one of those grey areas that Turkey sort of claims. Turkey also holds that many of these islands need to be demilitarized because of their proximity. So when the alarm was sounded that Greek forces were on Emir, Turkey moved to respond. Turkish armored units moved to the buffer zone in Cyprus, and the Cypriot National Guard was ready for combat. The Greek SEALs confirmed that Turkish forces had arrived at their location, and just when it seemed like the tension would burst, frantic negotiations with the United States as a mediator saw the two agree to withdraw their forces. However, the helicopter that was sent to pick up the SEALs did not make it home, crashing into the sea, killing 3 on board. Many speculate the helicopter was actually shot down by a Turkish ship acting on their own accord, but was covered up by both sides to avoid escalation. There isn't much evidence to back that up, though, and it's not like either side hasn't had their fair share of crashing aircraft into the sea. Now, one of the most notable threats from the whole ordeal came in December 2022, when Erdogan directly threatened the Greek capital. Noticing that Greece was aiming to purchase new military equipment from the United States, he stated, "If you don't stay calm, if you try to buy something from here and there, from America to the islands, a country like Turkey will not be a bystander. It has to do something. Now we have started to make our own missiles. Of course, this production scares the Greeks. When you say Typhon, the Greeks get scared and say it will hit Athens. Well, of course it will." And this is far from the only recent threat. Erdogan maintains that Greece is militarizing its many islands and, in effect, militarizing the Aegean, and says that if Athens continues to push its luck, Turkey is prepared to launch an offensive at a moment's notice. So what would happen if the two countries actually did go to war? Well, first let's take a look at how each side stacks up militarily. On the global power index...
I'd imagine that Turkey are... maybe I'm wrong, but I'd imagine that Turkey's military is much, much larger.
Greece ranks at number 30, with 130,000 active militarily. On the Global Power Index, Greece ranks at number 30, with 130,000 active personnel and 220,000 reserve personnel. Turkey takes the advantage here with a global firepower rank of 11, with 425 active personnel and 200,000 reserve. In the air, Turkey has almost twice the amount of total aircraft that Greece has, including transport, training, and reconnaissance planes, and has about twice as many helicopters with nearly 500. However, the two have almost equal number of fighter jets, right around 200 each. The navies are similar in strength, with neither side having a major advantage as they have similar numbers of frigates, patrol vessels, and submarines, and neither one has any aircraft carriers. As for land operations, the front lines for such battles would take place in Thrace, where Turkey meets continental Europe, as well as on Cyprus. In almost any land battle, Turkey will be at an advantage, with a significantly higher number of tanks, self-propelled artillery, and armored vehicles. Overall, Turkey possesses a clear advantage militarily, but it's unlikely that an Aegean war would be a strict one-on-one brawl between the two sides. With both members of NATO, the defensive alliance would be thrown into completely uncharted territory on how to respond, and there are many different options here. For example, if NATO determines that Turkey was the undisputed aggressor, it is possible that NATO would intervene to defend Greek territory. This would mean that within just a few weeks, Turkey could face crippling airstrikes from American stealth bombers and have their entire military crumble into a logistical nightmare as the full force of the alliance shows up. However, if the cause isn't quite so clear, NATO may not be able to choose a side and may instead try and enforce a ceasefire. Another very possible outcome is that NATO recognizes Turkey as the sole aggressor, but hesitates to intervene out of fear of losing Turkey from the alliance. As it stands, Turkey is one of the most powerful forces in all of NATO, and on top of its military power, it also has an unmatched geographic location on the Bosphorus.
So off the bat, Turkey does seem to be the aggressor here, just from this video. I've like I've said, I know very little about the topic, and most of it is just from this video here. But from the video, it does seem like they're being overly aggressive. At the same time, they have national interest. If they want to, a country should always reserve the right to, if you want to act in a way that pisses off neighboring countries, but you think it's worth it for your own national interests, well, that's what international politics is all about, isn't it? I think, especially for countries like the US or Canada, Russia, China, the large geographical countries, to tell other countries like, yeah, borders, they're set as they are. All of the means that we use to get the borders we have, the earth is a finite place. If I'm a smaller country, I'm like, wait, so you're telling me this is just how it is? And I think that's a little naive, no? To think that, come on, Turkey, stop it. You're being a bully. No, nations are going to look for their best interests, and if they think going to war with Greece is worth it, then they're going to do it. I have a very, I don't want to be like, oh, you stop doing this. It's like, no, you're an adult. You're a country. You're going to pick an action that you think the repercussions aren't going to be worse than the outcome that you're going to get. And so I'm like, hey, know your worth as a country, but you do seem like kind of a bully here. But if you think that the perception of being a bully is not as bad as giving up on any national dreams you want, then that's going to be what you're going to do. So,
effectively giving NATO control over the entrance to the Black Sea and severely limiting Russia's naval capabilities. With this in mind, if the war between Turkey and Greece doesn't appear to be too serious, NATO may choose to appease Turkey instead, as the alternative solution might not be worth losing a strategic partner. However, from another perspective, NATO may stand defiant on the side of Greece, as Turkey, despite its importance, is also among the most problematic members and is currently blocking Sweden's request to join. A 21st century Greco-Turkish war may simply mean the end of Turkey's membership in NATO and would certainly be the end of their ambitions to join the European Union. But these consequences may not be enough to deter Erdogan from starting a war. Highly nationalist ideology has been pushed by him for years now, especially around election times, and heated nationalism has always been known to push aside logic and long-term planning. This is especially dangerous when combined with Turkey's clear advantage in a head-to-head fight.
And I say this, guys, this is what I mean. I think you're being naive, and I hate sounding that way because I'm naive on a bunch of things. But if that makes you angry and you're not Greek, okay? Maybe because, then you're just not living in the real world, in my opinion. This is how history is played out forever. You bank. Okay. Oh, wow. Now you're going to be kicked out of NATO and you're not going to be able to join the EU. Okay. They know that. You think that they don't know that? Of course they know that. So I understand, criticize countries and call them out, but don't be naive and being like, oh, tisk tisk, stop doing it right now. Oh, okay. Thanks. Like, I don't like that thinking and that bringing in anger into what international countries do, like Russia and Ukraine. Perfect example. It didn't make me angry when Russia invaded Ukraine. It just made me like, that's a ballsy move. So you're taking the risk of being more alienated from certain countries, your country taking an economic dive and possibly political dive as well. But you think that you can conquer Ukraine, and in the end, it will be a plus for you, right? Fine. Like there's no like, no, that's how history has happened forever. And so with Taiwan and China, does China want to take that risk? That's going to be up to China, and it's going to be up to other countries to gauge how much they want to protect and everything. So I have a very, does that make sense? I hate calling something naive because it really sounds pretentious.
Nationalism has always been known to push aside logic and long-term election times, and heated nationalism has always been known to push aside logic and long-term planning. This is especially dangerous when combined with Turkey's clear advantage in a head-to-head fight. With Erdogan's rhetoric of calling the United States more of an opponent and less of an ally, he may see the loss of the alliance as heartbreaking, but a necessary step towards increased Turkish security.
Nothing wrong with that.
Though it's important to note that the majority of both Turks and Greeks hold no personal resentment toward the other side, there is legitimate palpable tension, even among the general population. Some reporters have likened the rhetoric in current Turkish media to the way American media talked about Iraq in the early 2000s, calling it a threat to security in the region and viewing it as an inferior opponent.
Fair.
Same way that the United
Fair, 100% fair comparison, in my opinion. Why did the United States rush to Kuwait's defense? Because it's a nice guy? No, because of strategic reasons. Because America uses the power it has to get what it wants and gauges the possible outcomes. Like, could the United States nuke Iceland and Greenland and kill everyone and take the islands under itself? Sure it could. And it could do it, right? But it's about, is that worth it? No, it's not. You becoming a pariah and having everyone hate you and starting possible nuclear conflicts, that's not worth getting the territory. So wipe away whether it's a good thing, a nice thing to do. I don't think countries care about what a nice thing to do is on the international stage. I guess that's maybe a cynical approach. But yeah, I think stuff is a lot more. Yeah, so I know that probably sounded extreme, but I'm just trying to hammer my point through that. This is what countries do. They gauge their possible wants against the repercussions.
The United States was so confident that a war in Iraq would be swift and decisive, there is a general perception in Turkish media that a war with Greece would be lopsided and quick. But if there's anything we've recently learned about large-scale conventional wars in the 21st century, they're anything but quick and easy. A war over the Aegean Sea would certainly lead to the deaths of thousands and irreparably damage international relations. And with the clear potential for the conflict to pull in allies on both sides, it's really for the best that the conflict in the Aegean remains purely rhetorical.
Guys, I feel I'm. If I were someone talking about peace talks, of course I wouldn't talk the way I am. I'm just trying to learn stuff, right? And I'm just trying to point out that some emotional responses to stuff like this, I think, are misplaced. Unless you're the country being attacked, obviously, then it's inherently emotional. They're, changing your way of life drastically. But yeah, I like to look at history and current events on that level of very much just blunt. This country wants national interest over that, right? Hope that made sense. I'd appreciate to see any of your comments, right? Tell me I'm wrong, please, in any of my opinions. I very well could be wrong. And yeah, I hope you guys are doing well, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, guys.